Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Coach 'em Up podcast here on the Barrels and Buckets channel. I'm Travis Turner. That is my partner, Ed Chapman. And if you haven't been with us before, and we've only been around for one episode, Ed, so it's entirely possible the world could have missed episode one. And I do want you to go back. I mean, the folks that watched episode one, they're going to hear Ed tell the story that kind of helped us come up with our title here, Coach 'em Up, and what it means. But just to quickly summarize what we're about, Ed and I are two old coaches at this point. You should be able to look and see that. We've been around a while, we've been doing it a while, and we are sort of creating a coach's resource here. And for coaches, also for parents and any players that might discover it, have interest. But how can we coach better? How can we lead better? How can we mentor better? How can we serve the people that we are trying to serve? To the best of our ability. And for Ed and I, it's kind of started with a reflection, coaching ourselves, the idea of learning from our mistakes, helping others avoid those same kinds of mistakes. And our first episode, which was entitled, Are the Good Times Really Over for Good? That was about recognizing the just sort of the natural thing for older generations say, oh, these kids today, and you get fixated on the negative there and you don't embrace the great things about the modern era and about who kids are today. And so we kind of worked our way through that. We hope you go back if you haven't seen it. If you're just discovering here in episode two, go back and give that a watch. And all of our titles, or at least as many of them as we can, Ed and I are old music lovers. And so we've had the Merle Haggard Standard was the inspiration for episode one. Today, episode two is You Don't Always Get What You Want. And that comes from the Rolling Stones. And Ed, the classic anthem from the Stones and from Mick Jagger, the chorus, you can't always get what you want. It's repeated over and over. They are emphasizing something there, Ed. And then they say at the end of that, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you find you get what you need. And that's where we're going this morning. And what is our responsibility as coaches? Because we're gonna kind of work our way through this and maybe reverse engineer this a little bit. But what is our responsibility as coaches to help players understand the want need difference?
Yeah, that's always a tough one because everybody wants instant success, or at least they want to be able to see some immediate results to whatever amount of work that they put in. They may not be aware of how much work will actually be required for whatever skill they're trying to develop, whatever accomplishments that the team is trying to reach. So wanting versus needing is often a very uncomfortable transition to go from what you want, which is that end result that you want to be able to accomplish something, whether it's individually or in a team setting. But what you need is the honest conversations. You need the honest feedback. You need an honest evaluation of where you are. And yes, okay, we know where you would like to go. We have to understand how realistic that is. You have to put some sort of parameters on it or understanding of how much time and effort might be required of it. And also a very deep understanding and self-awareness of who you are, what your talent base allows you to accomplish. And then you got to be able to adjust from there and perhaps set some intermediate goals that are achievable based on the things that you can control. And that is a humbling experience. It is something that's very difficult. And honestly, it is part of the great frustration that leads to many people willing to walk away from it because they don't get what they want. And it can, if you don't have a better sense of what you need to move in that direction, you will get frustrated. You'll get burned out, whatever, whether you're the coach or whether you're the player, you'll tend to just run to something else that is more comfortable and give it up. And so as coaches, we're trying to help them understand the great reward of hard work is hard work. Hard work is its own reward, and it has its own great value regardless of the results that you might be able to measure.
And Ed, I'm going to start. I'm kind of going to put the onus on us as coaches first. One of our great friends in the coaching business, Brad Burns, the head baseball coach at Pleasure Ridge Park in Louisville, Kentucky. Brad will at some point join us on this show, and we look forward to getting his input and wisdom. Brad has always held me accountable as friend and as fellow coach about making sure that we're coaching ourselves up first and then being in a position to do a better job with the players. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is applying these same ideas to us as coaches, because we also have things that we want. So how do we balance what it is we want? What is it that we really need? What should we expect as coaches, and how dangerous is it if we delve into that idea of what we deserve, or at least what we believe we deserve as coaches?
Right. I mean, I'll start backwards there a little bit. I mean, we think we deserve a certain amount of success. We want to be acknowledged, and we like for other people to be somewhat impressed with what we've been able to accomplish and get credit for that. And so we think we deserve something there. But if we'll back out and set aside our own personal needs and desires there and say, okay, from the standpoint of what I can control, I must be a servant to the people that I'm coaching, and I have to help them be better. And I have to constantly be evaluating what it takes for me to be what they need me to be.
Right.
And that's tough. I mean, I said I grew up this way, and then I also coached this way. And there is a lot of truth to the idea that, okay, as a player, it is your job to please the coach, right? They set the standard.
That was the way it was.
Right. You're supposed to try to please us and not the other way around. The coaches can't attempt to please and appease every athlete to give them exactly what they want, because we know the human condition is you want a level of comfort. But as coaches, we have to evaluate, do I really do this for what I will get out of it? Or do I do this for what I can give to it? And by giving to it, you're not just giving to the game or the sport that you're involved with, but you are giving to the individuals that you are working with. And what can I give them? Okay. I don't need to give them false, confidence that's not legitimate. I can't tell them, I laugh and say, I can't infuse somebody with a certain level of confidence that's not actually in line with reality. Somebody can't come to me and say, Ed, I believe you can run a 450 mile. Well, you can tell me that all day long, and you could pump me up and do everything in the world to convince me of that, but I haven't trained to do that. And I don't know that even if I did train to do that, that I can do that at this age.
Right.
So, what do I need? As a coach, somebody would need to give me those incremental steps that allow me to see, hey, there's an investment being made in me, the person, not just the performer. And that's really where we've got to get ourselves back to as coaches, is understand you coach the person and not just the performance that person can provide.
And that's tough, especially when we're in a results business. And I think the key, Ed, is I almost said results driven. Well, that's determinant on your attitude and your perspective and how you choose to go about this job.
Yeah. I mean, it's true that there's not a lot of call for news reports and updates on social media about really good coaching job that was done. Most of the time, it's just, did we win or lose, or who performed the best? And we have to, as coaches, get out of the cycle of this need for constant affirmation in our own abilities. The very thing that trapped me early in my coaching days was that when my players couldn't perform, I felt it was a slight against me. And it was saying to others that I respected in the profession, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's doing because his team can't do this or can't perform well, or really they can't win the game, right?
Right.
And, I mean, you can't always get what you want. You realize that every time that you lace them up and play, somebody's going to have won and somebody's going to have lost. And it doesn't automatically mean that the winner is doing a better job or the loser is doing a lesser job. You have to find better and more significant ways of evaluating. And yes, you need to get results. We know that. We know that winning um, is part of what drives us, but it can't be the primary driver, or it will be the thing that corrodes the relationships with the very people that you're working with. What a shame it would be to actually have won and then nobody feel good about it.
Well, Ed, I'm going to share something with you. I don't know if you had a chance to see this or not, but I'm glad you said it. I'm glad you said it just like that. So last night, and Ed and I are recording on the morning of Wednesday, November 5th. So this was a women's basketball game played on Tuesday night, November 4th. The defending national champion UConn Huskies, preseason number 1, as you might have expected, they were taking on preseason number 20, the very strong program of the Louisville Cardinals, coached by Jeff Walls. And Gino Auriemma, Ed, who is, I'll have to say, is one of my coaching heroes. I could listen to the man talk for hours upon hours. And what he built there at UConn from not much, if maybe nothing, now 12 times a national champion, I think you could make a case he is as good a team sports coach who has ever lived. So I turned the game on and watch UConn score to go up 25-7 in the first quarter. So it's out to the woodshed already. They're up by 22 at half, and they're just wearing Louisville out. It looks like they may win by 40. Well, Louisville goes zone. UConn doesn't make a lot of shots from the perimeter. Louisville, to their credit, keeps fighting. And by the end of the fourth quarter, it's gotten down, I think, to maybe 8 or 10. UConn ultimately wins, I think, by 13. I think 79-66 was that final. So the ESPN women's basketball studio crew was there in Annapolis at the Naval Academy where the game was being played. And when Coach Auriemma comes to the platform there, to the desk to visit with that crew, one of the first questions was addressing the idea that they had this big lead and it kind of got frittered away. And how did he feel about that? And he stopped and he considered for a moment and he said, hey, he said, here's what we're not going to do. He said, we're not going to get caught in this thing all year where somebody thinks that we should have won by 30 or 40 and we don't, and we end up being miserable about winning. He said, we're not going to do that. He said, I'm happy for the team. That is some wisdom. And I suspect Gino himself would tell you that perspective has changed for him throughout the many years of his career. But what a statement, what a lesson.
Right. I mean, it takes us a long time to get there if you stay in the coaching game to get to that point. Obviously, you know that there are things that you need to work on. There's things that he's frustrated about the way that the second half went. But you also can't throw out what was so great about their first half that led them to that position.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's not all about feel good and everybody be happy every minute because it's competitive athletics. That team's trying to beat you and you're trying to beat them. But can we gain some perspective? Can we zoom out on occasion and be able to say, you know what, I have enjoyed today the competitive nature and the willingness to play together as a team or whatever it is? What are the things in the micro that we can look at that we can back up and say, okay, there are areas of improvement to be made for sure. But are there things that, that we can emphasize and say, these are good things and we should celebrate those things because we would like to see them happen more often. And again, it's not that you can just, oh, well, everybody's going to get a juice box at the end of the game and feel good about things. I mean, we know that we don't all play t-ball forever, right?
Right.
But there has to be a human element, and there has to be a connection there, and coaches will really do themselves well. Again, these are a couple of old coaches here on this show that are saying, do as we say now, not as we have always done.
Oh Lord, that's absolutely a fact.
And that's why, if this could help somebody to gain that perspective and to operate with that mindset, that celebrates the good things while still understanding there's plenty of things to work on. You just don't want winning to be such an expectation when you're at a certain level that you are miserable over the margin all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relentless chase of your own tail, and it's not one that ever ends particularly well. And Ed, I'm gonna bounce off of that to talk about this, because folks, what Ed just talked about in terms of us trying to be reformed, if you will, evolving perhaps is the better word. Uh, because I will speak, and of course Ed had a front row seat to me as a head coach in recent years. I coach the old way in so many ways. I believe that there is an absence of toughness, especially of mental toughness. I believe there's an absence of leadership that is often found now. And I believe very seriously, I was very convicted about the idea that it's our job to create young men and help them transition from being boys into being somebody someday that's going to be a great employee, a great husband, a great father, a great member of the community. And because we were pushed in a certain way years ago, Ed's already referenced that. It's very easy to fall into that trap of we're going to do it that way again. I think of many of the coaching heroes that I've had over the years, and so many of them tough, demanding. That was their public persona. That was also probably their reality. And Ed, you watched me do this, and for me, we wanted to win and we wanted to build a championship program. But the thing that drove me more than that idea was just the idea that there was a standard and there was supposed to be a level of seriousness, a level of professionalism, a level of accountability and responsibility that was present every day in the program. What I understand now, after having coached that many years with young people of this modern era and actually thinking about who we were really as teenagers, is that was a lot for them.
Yeah.
That was a lot for them. And they didn't want that. But I also have come to understand they also didn't need all of it either. And that's where we get to this point. I think, and this is one thing from our friend Brad Burns. Brad always said you have to ask the question, what would it have been like to have been coached by me? And the person that I was as a player, I would have loved being coached by me because that's how I'm wired. But you do this long enough and you listen to some other people and you recognize the actual need of your players and you figure out that maybe what you wanted and needed as a player is not what they want and need. And sometimes the focus on trying to create, in my case, the best, most regimented, most high level execution baseball team in the world was not paying enough attention to what the human playing baseball always needed.
I think that's it. And again, we had to try to evolve and change as people who grew up in a world where athletically in particular, but really just in life in general, is there was a mold, and everybody that was going to be successful was essentially forced into that mold. You do it this way, and that's what you have to do. That's the expectation. And I just think that in terms of understanding people, that wasn't always best. I mean, we
Yeah, it
thought,
wasn't always understanding people at all.
right. In fact, yeah, it was essentially taking that out of the equation. And so, um, I think we do well to to try to understand the individual and realize that there has to be an adaptability on my part as a coach, as an assistant coach, whatever. Uh, how can we get the best out of this person? And it is not going to look the same over and over. And yes, we want a certain level of professionalism. Okay, well, that's not how they're wired as a general rule. And in particular, some of them have a lot further to go in terms of seriousness and dedication to the
Right.
okay. But does that mean that we simply throw up our hands and say he's not my kind of guy? Well, what kind of coaching is that? Now we're back to coach them up. Have you thought about just coaching them up and seeing where they are and see if you can use, you're supposed to have some technical skill in the sport itself, yes, but you're also supposed to have some savvy about the people that you are coaching, discipling, guiding, however you want to use it outside of the realm of I'm in charge of this team. And how do I instead seek to find them where they are and nudge them in the direction that they need to go based on my perspective and understanding, and also based on the feedback I get from them. I got a kid that just wants to play high school ball, doesn't care about, pursuing options beyond high school, though they may have that potential. Okay, will I resent that kid for the whole time I coach them because they don't want that? Or will I simply say, how can you be the best version of the high school you and the best teammate you can be? And how can I also be someone that coaches you with a level of love, concern, respect for who you are, while also taking those deep breaths as a competitor that says, you know what, they don't have the fire that I wish they had, but they're still somebody of tremendous value, and let's go in a direction together. Let's try to go in a direction together. And that is the constant balancing act.
Well, and it almost requires the biblical or spiritual approach. You may not like the player, but it's your job to love him and coach him, nonetheless. And I think you do this long enough, and you begin to realize that sometimes maybe all the player wants and maybe all the player needs is to be a part of something and just to be appreciated, and for them to see in us as coaches that we do see them and that we do care about them. And that's it, and that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there are societal issues and extra stuff now that impacts them in ways that we, again, from our long distance viewpoint, we say, oh, they should be able to get over that. That shouldn't bother them. Well, that's entirely beside the point, and it's unfair for us to say that, because we don't know how we would handle things if we were 16 years old today.
Right.
And it doesn't matter because they aren't them. I mean, they aren't us, right? Like Brad used to tell you, you're not coaching you.
I mean, that's it.
And you and I have both been through it coaching our own sons, and that's a whole different episode. Let's don't go there today. But it really is a very humbling experience if you'll allow yourself to be humbled and say, I've got a lot to learn still about how to best serve. Now we're back to this whole idea. It is servant leadership. True leadership steps in the void and says, I'm not walking away. I'm not giving up on you. I will serve, and I will figure out a way to serve you best, assuming a good faith effort on the behalf of the athlete as well. I have to make sure I look in the mirror and say, am I giving the good faith effort that I demand of them?
Yeah. And I think, Ed, the important part is to just put yourself in that right place. And I think if we were to say, what do coaches need? Coaches need the ability to make their pride and ego die so that they may serve their players in the right way. Because going back to that trap of what we deserve, and that's another one I know as a pastor you can talk about spiritually, but it's very human to go, okay, let me work through how many hours I have spent here, how many working on this program, coaching these guys. I'm not making any money, and I just put in and I put in and I put in. I can't even get a good effort back, and I certainly can't get any wins. And woe is me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
now you're in it, right?
Yeah. I mean, and you're the adult who's supposed to be past that. And now you're falling into the same trap that you complain about your athletes doing, right? You
Sound a
complain.
little entitled, don't you?
Yeah. When your athlete wants to moan and groan about playing time or their role on the team, and we say, get over yourself. Yeah. I mean, it's the old one finger pointed at them, three back at yourself, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's again, if you'll stick around long enough, you will be humbled. What would be best is if you could, the sooner you can pick up on that and humble oneself, the better. But time will certainly do it on its own. If you don't choose to be an active participant in it, you'll be humbled by just your constant strain and struggle.
What I asked you in episode one about, kind of the time frame of understanding better, and getting past some of the, I guess, the ignorance of youth, if you will. And you talked about the number of years that it took, and my goodness, I'm not far from my 53rd birthday, and I think I've only just taken baby steps in figuring this out better. But what has been critical for you? Is it age and experience? Is it wisdom? Is it seeing yourself and your old errors and others? I know right now you're very actively mentoring your son as his coaching career gets started. So I know you have so many things on your mind about helping point him in the right direction. What have been some of the biggest keys in helping you get to where you are now?
I would say, I mean, there's a variety of things. One of those is which you can't stop learning. Okay, so you sort of go from this phase if you start coaching in your 20s, where you're trying to establish that you know what you're talking about and you want the respect of your athletes, whether they happen to be in middle school, high school. Um, you want them to look to you as the authority who has all the answers, right? You want to impress them with what you know, especially tactically, right? In terms
Right.
of the
Schematic advantage.
yeah, uh, and but eventually you have to continue to learn, and again, this is not just about learning about the actual skills themselves or the X's and O's involved, but it's learning about people. Now, of course, the biggest teacher to me was phase one was, okay, you're married, then you have kids, and then you start to see your kids come up and play and compete with their peers, and it shifts you to some degree, and yet you still got a lot to learn because you want so much for your child, right? But then as time wears on and if you're willing to listen to mentors and you're willing to do a lot of self-evaluation, then you realize, okay, what I thought I knew and what I thought I needed to prove to everybody else is mostly inconsequential. It really comes down to, can I impart what I know in a way that is meaningful, helpful, and largely over time, you want to say transformational, not just transactional. What can I get these kids to do so I get a transaction? I invest this in them and they pay me back by making me look good. But transformational is they know that I have their best interest at heart as a person, and that when I'm difficult, when my voice gets loud, it's not that I'm done with you. It is that I am raising your standard. I'm raising the attention, and this is not just for my ego. This is for the betterment of the individual. But really, it's all about time and a willingness to look and learn and listen to others and be willing to say, wait a minute, that's a great idea in terms of how to coach or lead people. I'm not doing that. You've got to read, you've got to watch podcasts or listen to podcasts. You've got to allow other people to pour into you, rather than stay in a silo and assume that you already know all that you need to know.
And you got to keep serving. I mean, that's the thing. I think we go through life so much, and we're looking for the key to happiness. And I think one of the keys to happiness is understanding that happiness is fleeting. It's a very where it's moving goalposts, man. I don't know. I should be happy, but I'm not. I think that's a whole nother episode. We probably need to leave that to the psychologist, but you just have to keep serving, and you just have to keep thinking of others, and you just have to keep putting your players first, and just be diligent in that, I think. And again, you just, every time your pride and your ego pops up, you just tamp it down, because ultimately, Ed, I think, to sort of put a bow on where we are today with this particular episode, is what players really need is the best version of their coaches.
All right. Yeah. And I'll play off what you mentioned there. Happiness. I mean, you're chasing something that can't be attained. You can't even define it in most cases. It's based on what happens to you, and it gives you you can get a temporary fulfillment of happiness based on what's happening until something less happy happens. So instead, find the joy, find what gives you joy, be fueled and geared by that which brings true joy, and be the person that they need you to be. And sort of, if anything, you might even have to just sort of drop some of the expectations, especially as they relate to wins and accomplishments and so forth. The best coaching experience I've had in probably my whole life, to be honest with you, was a couple of years ago coaching the girls team at New Covenant Christian Academy. They didn't know they didn't know they were going to need a coach. I didn't know I was going to go there to coach after I retired from public school. And I said, Coach, I have no idea how we would match up with the people we played against. I had never seen a private Christian school girls game, right? I had no idea what these girls could do in comparison. I had no expectation. And it was joy on my behalf to see them. They're willing to listen and do whatever I say. And I just said, we're just going to play as free as we can possibly be and just cut loose. And we did win a fair amount. But more than anything was just watching them pursue improvement, right? And that gave me great joy. And it was nice to not have any expectations, because I didn't know what to expect. And that was a beautiful, blissful way to approach it. And we would all probably be better off, because when you start trying to compare to what everybody else can accomplish, I always I got another cliche I'll end with. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? Comparison. That's right. Quit comparing to somebody else. It'll steal your joy in a heartbeat.
Yeah, our journey, each of us, our journey is our journey. And Ed, to echo you, my joy is working as an instructor, because regardless of the talent level and the ultimate intent of each player, all I can do is try to help them love the game and be better. And right. Devotion to that task, it's really uplifting, it's inspiring, and that's what pours into me, is just knowing the purity of that there's no agenda here. There's not a game to win, and there's not an ego to be damaged. It's just, let's see if we can get a little better today. Let's see if we can help you enjoy this process. You get that done. It's a pretty awesome feeling. And by the way, folks, Ed mentioned it, and we will do, and we'll probably do it soon, because I'm trying to get our show out to parents, to dads who are helping their sons, who are coaching their sons. My goodness gracious, what a thing it is to coach your child. And Ed and I could write maybe 6 books on the bad roads we've gone down doing it and the lessons we've learned doing it. And boy, we really do want to help people that take on that challenge, because kids need to be coached. The kids need wonderful leaders. That's what we're talking about here. And that includes our children. Whether or not you should coach your own kid or not, that's we'll talk about that. But it's one of the hardest things we've ever done. Yes, my friend.
Oh yeah, let's don't invite our sons to be guests on here.
We'd get some real lessons if we got that feedback, wouldn't we?
Right. I'm not sure I'm ready for that feedback still, even after all these years.
Oh, that's another one of those things that should be held in the room of therapy, I think.
Right.
When you talk about that, but great stuff, Ed, today. You don't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need. Maybe that's the most important thing of all. I do want to make this announcement for any of you that are with us to the end of episode 2 here. Episode 3 for Ed and I will be a little bit of departure from our Coach 'em Up brand. Again, this is about leadership, relationship, mentorship, being a resource for coaches and parents and in the development game and the leadership game. And we may have 1,000 episodes in us if we breathe long enough. I don't know. We certainly got a lot to talk about in this area. But episode 3 will be something near and dear to Ed and I. That's the study of analytics, the impact it can have, particularly with some things that he and I work on. So we hope you'll watch episode 3. We hope you'll watch them all. But if you're looking for the continuation of the coaching resource, that'll probably pick up in episode 4. And Ed and I, that is yet to be determined. So any of you on the comments section of our videos, if there's a particular topic that you'd like to see us address, we'll be happy to do that. So leave that in the comments, and we're making our list, but certainly any feedback from folks. It's a lot of fun to think about what we can do to help each other. I think Ed just, he mentioned that's what this is about, is learning, always learning. And there may be a change that's just right around the corner based on the wisdom of someone else's words, but maybe even more so their actions. My friend, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you here next episode.
Got it. Thanks.
Episode 2 in the can here. We'll see you guys for episode 3 here on the Coach 'em Up podcast.